Welcome to the Pizza Buffet, powered by Pinnacle Sportsbook here on Forward Progress, part of the Hammer Betting Network. We're live on Forward Progress on YouTube and Forward Progress on Twitter. And this is the show where, per usual, nothing's changing because it's Championship Sunday. I'm going to run through today's NFL card, top to bottom, rotation number order, lock in any bets at Pinnacle lines that I think are still worth making. And because we only got 2 games today, I'll do the full sides and totals, as well as talk a little bit about props. A reminder, Pinnacle is the world's sharpest sportsbook. They're now available to bettors in Ontario. Find out what professional bettors have known for decades. Pinnacle is where the best bettors play. You must be 19 plus in Ontario. Please play responsibly. Not available in the U.S. I want to touch on that please play responsibly part really quickly. Second last day of the year that we're going to be able to bet NFL. Well, forget about the Pro Bowl or whatever skills competition they're doing this year. But bet within your limits. Obviously, everyone wants to bet these games and enjoy them. We have 2 really good matchups on paper today. Both spreads below a field goal. Should be a great football day. And I understand everyone wants to get involved on it, whether you're in pools or you're betting through sports books, betting at Pinnacle, whatever you're doing. Just make sure that you're betting responsibly. Betting is a form of entertainment. Obviously, people want to win money. However, it can get out of hand quickly. So, with 2 games on the board, do what you can to bet within your limits. If you're sweating today, you're uncomfortable. You know, I see these TikTok videos and Instagram, on Twitter, whatever, of people putting their fists through TVs when stuff goes against their bets. Like, come on. That's too much. So, bet within your limits. Let's have some fun. And we will do that today. Appreciate Brian. Any pod without Kanish is a great pod. Totally agree. Very, very glad he couldn't join us on Friday for Forward Progress. Numbers through the roof for that show. Thank you very much, Kanish, for not joining. 30 subs from 900. Just a reminder to everyone out there, like and subscribe. If you enjoy the content, hit that, smash that like button, that thumbs up. If you subscribe, you get notified whenever we go live in the future, whenever we put new football content, NFL content out on Forward Progress, you do get a notification for it. You don't have to get notified as well. It's not that invasive. You can just choose to turn off notifications if you don't want that. But please, it does help us grow the channel as well. One other last programming note. So for those who had watched me do the live watch-alongs for NFL Sundays or playoffs, I've done 5 in the playoffs so far, over on the Hammer HQ YouTube channel. I will not be doing those today. I will not be doing one of them. However, there will be one of them today. So, full disclosure to everyone out there, Championship Sunday is like a religious day amongst myself and my friends that I grew up with. It's like the one day of the year where the guys with their kids and the ones that moved like an hour away and so on and so forth can all get together to watch the football games, eat good food, drink, party, play some cards afterwards. That's what I'm going to be doing today. So it's my religious day of the year, so to speak, where I can get together with friends. We will have a live NFL watch-along tonight on the Hammer HQ. My partner in crime at the Hammer, Alex Moretto, will be hosting it. Clive Bixby, Jeff Feinberg, Brad Powers, the Hitman, and Joey Kanish will all be a part of that tonight. So that is going to be during the Bengals and Chiefs game, 6:30 p.m. Eastern time. They'll go live a little bit before that, give out some prop bets for the game, what they like for the game. But that is a live watch-along. For those of you who are watching at home, you don't like the commentary, or you just want the company of other bettors at once, part of a community, sweating their bets together, join that live watch along. That'll be over at the Hammer HQ. Okay, that's it. Some good comments in here for now. Yes, but let's get to it. Championship Sunday. Very excited about this. As always, I'm going to use betstamp to pull up the live odds for the games. You can download betstamp on Android or iOS. You can check it out at betstamp.app. I highly recommend it. I use it myself on a daily basis. Very, very easy to just navigate through sports, track your own bets, pull in your bets from specific sports books, find other bettors, so on and so forth. Quick refresh here. San Fran and Philly. So let's take a quick look at where we are at right now. So Pinnacle dealing -2.5, -118, -152 money line. Total down to 45.5. Let's take a quick look at the line history here. So Pinnacle on the money line over the course of the week. You can see original opener 138, all the way up to 152 right now. So money coming in on the Eagles over the course of the week. The spread's kind of been in the same spot. I think there was an early opener, just under 2, -2 plus 100. And like we've just been settled in around this 2.5 range for the entirety of the week right now. So let me start with the breakdown of the game. Interesting that we're seeing some of the more recreational books move to 3 here as well. But full breakdown of the game. So I don't want to dismiss anything that, like, the 49ers are a very good team, in my opinion. And frankly, even though we played an entire season for the Eagles, I think it's still fair to question whether or not they are as good as we think they are because of the quality of competition this year. Like, if you were to take a look at the Eagles and lay out their entire schedule for the season and try to find me their marquee win, it's probably week 1 against the Lions or week 2 against the Vikings. They played the Cowboys twice. One was with Cooper Rush. One was with Gardner Minshew, which they obviously lost. The Giants in the playoffs. Like, the Eagles really have not been a battle-tested team. So I think it's completely fair if you want to question whether or not they're actually as good as we think they are. Personally, I do think that they're as good as we think they are because I look at the talent on their roster across the board, and yes, they've not been like super battle tested this year, but they do not have a significant weakness. If you're looking to find the weakness on the Eagles in terms of personnel, it's probably the quarterback. And that's not to say that Jalen Hurts is bad, because I'm not suggesting that. I think he had a very good year. I'm ready to eat all the words, all the bad takes I had about Jalen Hurts, just like I did about Josh Allen. But that's probably their weak point. When I look at this matchup with San Fran, I think a lot of what Philly does well works in their favor in this matchup against San Francisco. Now, if we look at over the course of the year, whenever the Eagles have played teams that are very good at defending the run, they've thrown the ball on them. And we didn't see that with Dallas last week when they played San Fran. Dallas came out and they basically decided, our bread and butter, hand off to Zeke, hand off to Tony Pollard. Whenever we get him in the game, we'll try to mitigate, get some third and short, so on and so forth. And that just didn't work out for them. Ultimately, Dak Prescott turned it over in the red zone, and they couldn't get their running game going. The Eagles, in my opinion, are very unlikely to do that. I think they're much more likely to come out, throw the ball all over the field. That's been their bread and butter against good running teams this year. So I like that for them. Now, you might ask, the 49ers, defensive line, great pass rush, Nick Bosa, how are the Eagles going to stop this? Well, the Eagles' offensive line from left to right is so good. They're the best offensive line in the league. There's no significant weakness there. Now, I'm not saying that Philadelphia is going to win at the point of attack on every single play, but if you want a team that can mitigate a pass rush, the Eagles' offensive line will do it. Then you get these rare instances where the O-line does break down. The 49ers get pressure. Well, Jalen Hurts has something that Dak Prescott didn't have a week ago. He has a lot more mobility. We actually did see a little bit of mobility about Dak, pick up first downs with his legs. But Jalen Hurts, a completely different breed. And you look at the 49ers this year, they've struggled to defend quarterback runs all year. You look against quarterback scrambles. 49ers defense, 26th in success rate. So you have this amazing rush defense, but whenever the quarterback has been able to break pocket and scramble, then it's been much worse. So I like Philadelphia's chances to score in this game. I like their offensive matchup. Then it's the other side of the ball. And finally, we saw a Brock Purdy, I don't want to say lackluster game last week. It's not maybe the best terminology, but definitely a game where he came back down to earth a little bit. Cowboys defense got pressure. Corners were able to hold the 49ers receivers in check for some of that game. And the Cowboys get pressure. The Eagles are also a pretty high pressure rate team. They produce the second highest pressure rate in the entire league this year without blitzing. So they can get home without the blitz. They can get home with the blitz. They mix in some blitzes from their corners. They're a very good defense at getting after the quarterback. And we kind of have a really, really small sample size on Brock Purdy when he's pressured. His numbers are fine, but the one time he went up against a team with a high pressure rate, ultimately the 49ers offense just wasn't as good as it was previously. So that to me is a big factor, the Philadelphia Eagles being able to get home. Remember, if you look at Philadelphia's roster and you look at the defensive line, they can just rotate guys in and out. The Brandon Graham, Josh Sweat, Fletcher Cox, Javon Hargrave. Great defensive line already. Then you bring Robert Quinn into the mix on some plays. You bring Jordan Davis into the mix on some plays. You bring Ndamukong Suh into the mix on some plays. You bring Linval Joseph into the mix on some plays. And remember, Derek Barnett's on IR. Like, this is the depth of the defensive line that they've been able to build. You have Hassan Reddick on the outside, who's a great pass rusher in the linebacking core. Like, this is, to me, a very exploitable matchup, or a matchup that the Eagles are never going to feel like they have a disadvantage in any specific game. And then you look at the 49ers offense and the way that they've run the offense. And looking at Pro Football Focus, the 49ers have targeted the most in-breaking routes in the NFL for each of the past 5 years. This is the bread and butter of the Kyle Shanahan offense. In-breaking routes. Get the ball into these receivers' hands, they do damage. And there is no team in the league that's allowed less yards after catch per reception on in-breaking routes than the Philadelphia Eagles. Just 2.0 yards, 2 yards on the nose after catch per reception. They have very good cover corners across the board. Guys that can line up one-on-one and can make tackles. James Bradbury, Darius Slay, Avonte Maddox back in the lineup for them today. C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Josiah Scott. They have the corners that are able to shut down, maybe not shut down, but at least limit the 49ers offense. So, from a pure power rating standpoint, and I understand why there's such mixed opinions on this game, right? Because there's a lot of people who are just like, Philly, San Fran, they're the same team. They should be held in the same regard. I'm just going to take the points with San Fran. And you know what? You might be right. Like, these games, if we're looking at Pinnacle limits now, we're at like 100K on these games. Maybe it is just a coin flip at this spread at this point. But for me, in my handicapping style, or how I break down games, how I set numbers on the games, I think the matchups are extremely important. And I like this one for Philly. Now, this is a fair assessment, and I'll talk about this with props. I just don't understand who's guarding Kittle. Big game for Kittle then. The one guy on if I was targeting player props for overs for San Fran, it would be Kittle and McCaffrey. McCaffrey for obvious reasons, because you have Elijah Mitchell as like a game time decision today. Didn't practice for the majority of the week. Christian McCaffrey totals have been bumped up. Let's actually just quickly take a look at those. Like, his rushing yards totals have been bumped up. They were 54.5 earlier in the week. Pinnacle 58.5 right now. So we have seen them go up. But if Elijah Mitchell doesn't play, McCaffrey's workload is worth way more than the 4 yards that it's been adjusted for, in my opinion. On top of that, even if he is active, how much do we see of him having not practiced for the entirety of the week? He's one guy that particularly stands out in terms of, I could see this being part of the 49ers game plan. Teams that have had success against the Eagles this year have been the teams that have been able to run the ball down their throats. The Eagles lost to the Commanders on Monday Night Football. Now, Philly's run defense is way better than it was at that point, but that's one spot that I look for. George Kittle, I personally did play the over on receiving yards at 46.5. So we're not, let me just double check. Kittle over 46.5 minus 110 is what I played. So we're at 47.5 minus 110 at Pinnacle. That's pretty much the number across the board. He's kind of the guy that I see having a pretty decent matchup advantage over the middle of the field. Also, I do like to target tight ends and running backs in situations where I think that the quarterback's going to be under a lot of pressure. I think there is definitely something that within the 49ers game plan of potentially targeting Kittle early on to mitigate some of this pressure. I'd also be interested in looking at a touchdown look for Kittle anytime. I mean, you could play derivatives of it, but this is the guy that I think he's really come on in recent weeks. Obviously, over the course of the regular season, the 49ers had injuries on the offensive line where George Kittle was asked to do a lot more blocking. And maybe that's the concern here, is that you do have a team that generates a lot of pressure. Maybe they do leave Kittle in to block a whole lot more. That's certainly possible. But I do like the matchup against Philly's linebackers, period. So those are the two that I would target for the 49ers. We did have Hitman on Friday, who said he was targeting Christian McCaffrey unders, but that was assuming Eli Mitchell was going to be able to play, which he's not. Which he's like game time decision at this point. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to lock in the minus 2.5, minus 118. This is a $75 play for me. That's 3/4 of a unit. And we have a move to minus 117. Again, minus 115. Here we go. This is going to fluctuate in terms of VIG over the course of the day today. I'll get it confirmed shortly. But because we're in the process of moving, it's going to be challenging to lock it in, and I will do that over the course of the show. All right. In the chat, I'm interested what other people are playing. Saw this one this week, Purdy minus 150 to throw a pick. I'm typically not a big advocate of laying those types of prices to throw a pick. I think it might have also been Seth that took Brock Purdy over 2.5 interceptions at plus 1,500. I don't hate that look. It's definitely a playoff game. You could see a bunch of random variants in this, but like if Philly gets up early and the Eagles are throwing, the 49ers are throwing, you could see it get out of hand. Purdy under 31.5 pass attempts as well. Just looking at what else I see on the board. Yes, okay, so good point. I do like Jalen Hurts anytime TD. That is one for me that when you consider the fact that the 49ers struggle against quarterback rushes, I think anything plus 100, or better, which you get at Pinnacle right now, is a pretty solid bet at plus 101. On top of that, Philly is very good in these 3rd and short, 4th and short situations. They convert at one of the highest rates in the entire league. Part of that is because of Jalen Hurts' mobility. The 49ers defense is actually very bad in these types of situations. If you actually look at their defense on 3rd and short, they're 31st in the league. They allow opponents to convert almost 70% of the time, including playoffs. They've struggled to defend these types of situations that Jalen Hurts excels at. I personally think that this is valuable. And now this is a playoff game. You get basically Hurts playing. I don't want to say like not playing to win like in the regular season, but like he's going to do anything he can to win in this game. They will use his legs. They will design runs for him near the goal line. Not too concerned about the shoulder or anything like that. So I think that's a pretty good bet. Brandon, I'll talk about this after I do the Cincinnati game. So thoughts on the San Fran-Cincinnati teaser. I understand. Quick sneak peek. I don't love this teaser. However, I will explain the logic for anyone out there that might. Last thing I did like in this game as well, as I really pull it up, You might, if you bet the Eagles, you might not want to also bet this because like you're basically putting two eggs, like all your eggs in the same basket, so to speak. But my theory or my belief is that the Eagles are going to pass the ball. I could be wrong. Been wrong many times about how teams are going to game plan against other teams. I was wrong about that with the Cowboys last week. I was wrong about that with the Bucks against the Cowboys on Monday Night Football, first week of the playoffs. However, I just believe that this Eagles coaching staff is a staff that tries to exploit other teams' weaknesses. This has been consistent with them all year. This, to me, is too many rushing yards for Miles Sanders against a very good run defense and in a game where I don't think they're running a whole lot, including if they have a lead. That's one thing about the Eagles this year is that they get out to a lead, they get ahead, they still try to put their foot on the opposing team's throat, and they'll pass the ball in these situations. I think this total on Miles Sanders is a little bit too high. I was not expecting to see 50s on Miles Sanders. Also consider the fact that they do have two other running backs in the backfield in Boston Scott and Kenneth Gainwell, who they occasionally use as well. And I think that's about it for this game in particular. Trying to think of what else we've had over the course of the week on Forward Progress. That was John Legeza on Forward Progress on Friday. I like this look as well a little bit, but essentially recommended taking Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, both on their alternate overs in terms of receiving yards at plus money. I think he recommended 70, 80, and 90 receiving yards. Split up your bets, 70%, 15%, 15%, and high likelihood that you're able to cash one. There's been very few games this year where at least one of those guys hasn't gone off, and there's been a lot of games where they've both gone off as well. Okay, so that's it for the first game, 3 o'clock, Eagles and 49ers. And let me see if I could get that verified now. I have. Good number, -2.5, -114, Pinnacle Sportsbook on the Eagles. So a little bit of game day money on San Fran. Okay, KC Cincy. Market -2. Over the course of the week, we've seen the KC go to as high as a plus 119 dog at Pinnacle, back to -133 favorite. So we obviously know why this is the case at this point, right? Like just follow the course of the week. Okay, Mahomes hurt. Okay, Mahomes high ankle sprain. Let's get Cincy money on board right away in case Mahomes doesn't play. And then practicing, and no walking boot. And we're here where we're at right now. Same thing with the spread, right? In favor of KC, opens -1, gets all the way up to +2.5, all the way down to -2 now. So not massive moves by any stretch of the imagination. We didn't hit a key number of 3, but we have seen the numbers move. I feel like an idiot for not having bet Kansas City and maybe just not like trusting the injury reports all that much. So to unpack this game as a whole, if Mahomes is fully healthy, like if Mahomes was 100%, I would personally make Kansas City just over a 3.5 point favorite in the game. My number is probably lower than the market number because I think people are lower on Cincinnati than I am overall with the offensive line issues and everything like that. So I would have probably expected the market to be even higher than that. 100% Patrick Mahomes, probably 4.5 KC, maybe even higher. Consider at the beginning of December, these teams played at Cincinnati. KC was -2.5 on the road. Now we got a home playoff game, more home field advantage at Burrowhead, which I had a laugh at this week. And you get a cheaper price on Kansas City. I don't like to bet games with big uncertainty. I just don't. I know it's the end of the year here. I know people want to bet football games. Again, bet responsibly. You're entitled to have an opinion. You might think Mahomes is fine. You might think there's issues with him. You might want to bet, Chad Henne to take a snap in the game at plus 500 or whatever. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. This is not my betting style. I like to bet into an uncertain market when I have a very strong opinion about something. Here, I do not. If Mahomes was healthy and the market was 4.5, 5, I think Jeff Benson tweeted that the Circa opener would have been like 5.5 or something like that. I would have bet the Bengals because I think the Bengals are not a great stylistic matchup for the Chiefs. And this, like, forget about the 3-0 in the last 3 games or whatever, because the Chiefs had leads in all of those. Like, those could have unfolded very differently. I just look at what the Bengals do. Let's break it down, right? Offensive line injuries for Cincinnati, which really didn't get exposed by Buffalo last week. So there's a notion that, okay, Buffalo really couldn't expose that because the weather. There was snow all over the field. They couldn't get their footing. It's harder to rush the passer when there's this bad weather. Okay, fair enough. I don't know how much I buy that, but fair enough. There's at least like a logical explanation for it. Beat up O-line, pass rush can't get home. KC's front 7, a little bit better. You got like a true all-star caliber player, Chris Jones, in the middle. Like, there could be a lot of disruption overall. But what's not being accounted for, in my opinion, is that Joe Burrow throws the ball very quickly. He's not a guy that, this is not the same Chiefs or Bengals as last year, but Burrow taking 9 sacks against the Titans in the playoffs. They started the year like that. They couldn't figure it out. They had Burrow lining up under center, and it was everyone was like, oh, Bengals Super Bowl hangover, this and that. Then they started putting Joe Burrow in the shotgun. They started running out of shotgun. They started throwing a lot more screen passes. His average depth of target came down, and it worked. Joe Burrow throws the ball in the second fastest time in the entire league, 2.4 seconds. It's easy to do that when you have guys who can win at the line of scrimmage. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, even Hayden Hurst is emerging. You got Samaje Perine, Joe Mixon in the backfield. It's easy to get rid of the ball quickly and find the right guy. Kansas City's defense has not defended this well all year. So, look at Kansas City's pass defense this season. They're 16th in EPA per dropback. They're 12th in success rate. So average to above average pass defense this season. Now when we look at whenever the quarterback on the other team gets rid of the ball in 2.5 seconds or less, their EPA per dropback drops to 21st. Their success rate drops to 20th. This is not something they've defended well this year. It is a fairly decent sample size. I could potentially see that being an issue. And if you look at last week, this is exactly what the Bengals did to the Bills. Like, this wasn't attack downfield every single play. It was take 6 yards at a time, take 7 yards at a time, hand off to Mixon for 4 or 5. It's like death by 1,000 cuts with the Bengals right now. But they still have that play in them that can beat you deep as well. So, I don't love the matchup for the Chiefs defense. Now, maybe I'm undervaluing the offensive line injuries, but back-to-back games now where the O-line has held up. If we look at against the Ravens and against the Bills, and we look at their rushing performances by success rate this year, the Bengals against the Ravens, 3rd best of the year, 5th best against the Bills. So they've been able to utilize the running game out of shotgun as well. On the other side of things, I am a Patrick Mahomes stan. Like, Mahomes to me is in his own tier of quarterbacks, right? Like, I don't put him 1A, Burrow 1B, Josh Allen in that tier, whatever. Like, Mahomes, in my opinion, he doesn't have the accolades that he doesn't have like the 7 Super Bowls that Tom Brady has. And he probably never will. But Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback I've ever watched in my life. Period. He can stand in the pocket, throw the ball, change his arm angles to overcome different pass rushes. He excels at scrambling, making things happen. Like, He is absurdly good. The one thing that he does he does a lot of things extremely well, but extremely, extremely well. And what people don't realize is when Patrick Mahomes is pressured this season, only 11% of those pressures have resulted in a sack. That's the lowest pressure to sack rate amongst all quarterbacks in the league. He has a way of keeping plays alive. Period. We've seen it. We all know this. We've seen the plays. But any ankle injury that impacts him in terms of mobility, to me, is a big deal. And that's why I did not want to bet the Chiefs in this game. Period. Now, maybe he's just perfectly fine. Doesn't feel it, gets an injection before the game, can manage the pain, whatever. But that to me is a huge deal. And now why Cincinnati has also excelled and like made these halftime adjustments to slow down KC in the past is because they're very good as a defense when the play breaks down for the opposing offense and the quarterback has to scramble. When you look at plays where the opposing quarterback takes 3 or more seconds to throw, the Bengals are number 1 in defensive success rate in the league. They're number 2 in EPA per play. They're 3rd in success rates against quarterback scrambles as well. They're like the opposite of the Patriots. The Patriots extremely sound defense. As soon as the play breaks down, they don't know what to do. The Bengals know exactly what to do. So, I don't love the matchup for KC. However, the number in the game matters. Oh, by the way, as well, Jerick McKinnon has become a big part of the offense for the Chiefs as well. If you look at pass defense, DVOA, against opposing running backs, Cincinnati is 2nd. Another thing that the Chiefs do well, that Cincinnati does well on defense. So, all these things make it sound like I love Cincinnati in the game. I don't, because I don't know the health of Mahomes. And frankly, if Mahomes is fine, the line is short. I can give you all these advantages for Cincinnati's that like Cincinnati has. They just don't have 100% healthy Patrick Mahomes. That's the difference. And that's not a disrespect to Burrow. Burrow's great, fantastic, does a lot of things well himself. So this is why I have such a issue with this game is I think there's such a wide discrepancy on what we could see happen. And for whoever asked me about the teasers earlier, if I find that comment, I think it was Brandon, right? Yeah, Brandon asked me about the teasers earlier. This is why I don't like teasing this game. So, obviously this fits the mold of like exactly the type of game you'd want to tease or like the weekend you'd want to tease. You don't have too high totals. You can tease San Fran and Cincy up through 3, up through 7. Mathematically, that's a very sound teaser. If you play those in the long run, you're probably going to come out ahead. Wong teaser for anyone who wants to look it up that doesn't know what that is. But the whole premise of the Wong teaser is that the closing line is like extremely efficient. And I know that they're taking big bets on the NFL this week and so on and so forth. But I have a hard time believing that anyone out there really knows that the impact that Mahomes will have on this game or his injury will have on this game. And because of that, I think it creates way more variance in this game where you don't necessarily want to tease that up. So that's my prerogative on that. I also don't think it's a bad bet by any stretch of the imagination. I don't. But when you're teasing, if you're looking to tease for profit, let me put it that way, you can tease however you want. Bet your money however you want. I see people teasing through 0 this week. I don't recommend it. I think in the long run, you're going to get killed by doing that, but you bet however you want as long as you do it responsibly. If you're teasing for an edge, you want to do it in games where there's less uncertainty, in my opinion. It's like the same in the regular season, right? Where like you might have a team that closes as a 2.5-point underdog, but it's a quarterback making their first career start. Well, how do we, like, there's way more uncertainty in that game. That 2.5 is not as strong as a 2.5 between quarterbacks that we've seen playing forever, right? So just keep that in mind. Notice this trend as well this week of people playing Bengals alternate lines on the chance Mahomes gets injured. So that's fine. Here's what I noticed last week. When Mahomes got injured, there was way more time to bet the Jags if you wanted to in that game than I realized that there would be in the live betting markets. So if you're paying attention to the game, you probably can find a decent live betting angle here. And I will be paying attention to the game, looking for the same thing. But the live market does not adjust super quickly. Now, I'm not saying you're going to have 2 minutes or something like that. You still got to make a quick bet. You might want to have your live odds up on screen, consistently looking at them, so on and so forth, whether you're at a desktop or on your phone. Most people on their phones nowadays. But I don't think you can bet that pregame, but you have to put aside a probability on Mahomes getting re-injured. And again, I think that there's a lot of uncertainty there. Does that unusually high uncertainty with Mahomes mean we might see more drastic line moves today? So here's what I expect to happen. I could be totally off base on this. Right Angle Sports, which is a very, very highly respected betting service, released the Chiefs plus 2.5 earlier in the week, brought it down to 1. Now, as the week has gone on, more and more money because of the Mahomes health status. I don't think anyone is going to be rushing to bet Cincinnati like a sharp bettor now at this point up until game time. I think the most likely scenario is that we're going to see pregame warm-up in this game, or we're going to get some Twitter reports, some videos that come out. Remember, the warm-up in this game is going to be happening while the Eagles and 49ers are still playing as well. So I think what's likely going to happen is we're going to get some reports about how Mahomes is throwing, and I think there's more likely to be even more late Kansas City money. Potentially drives us up to 2.5, maybe 3. Highly doubtful that it gets to 3, but it's possible. I think it's one-way KC money, personally. I've been wrong about this many times before, but that's how I envision it playing out. How do you adjust home field advantage in championship games, Rob? Good question. Don't want to give away exact numbers. I adjust home field advantage based off of the team, for one. I know some people just use like a standardized number for home field advantage. I don't agree with that. So it's a team basis. I will say these, like the Eagles and Chiefs, have less home field advantage today than they did last week because they went in on a bye week last week, which is a bigger difference maker. So less home field advantage this week. Still a playoff game, still going to be loud just like it was last week. Hey, Rob, I see an Eagles 6.5 team total first quarter minus 120. It's 3.5 elsewhere. Is that a substantial edge or not, since 4 and 5.5 are dead numbers? I don't do much in terms of derivatives on a quarters basis, but I think you answered your own question there, because there's no likelihood of hitting, like you can only hit 4 with 2 safeties in the first quarter, 5, a field goal and a safety. So I do not believe that's a substantial edge. Okay, quick props look at the game. So in terms of player props here, it's the same deal for me, in the sense that like I just don't have a lot going on in this game, purely because of the uncertainty. What caught my eye earlier in the week was Isaiah Pacheco under on yardage. I don't really love this at all. It's just like kind of a small edge that if I was going to bet something, that might be a spot where I go for it. Lots of people on the Mahomes overs. So let's take a look at where we're settled in market here now. So the passing yards, 285.5. That's a low number for a Mahomes game. Again, built in with some uncertainty. How's his ankle going to hold up? Typically speaking, you got a 285.5 in a Mahomes game, you probably want to bet the over. Pass attempts is another one that people have been taking. 38.5. Pass completions, 25.5. This is one that a lot of people I know that have bet the over in this. Pinnacle actually has one of the best numbers in market right now. Minus 110, over 25.5. I get it. Just not going to be the way that I personally attack it necessarily. It's been the playoff of tight ends. Hayden Hurst, anytime touchdown in the range of 3-1, plus 292. Pinnacle, to me, probably a decent long shot bet. He's kind of the guy that, I could see a lot of different scenarios here. One of the challenges with predicting what's going to happen with KC is when the Bengals have these 3 wide receiver sets, which they run a lot, L'Jarius Sneed often comes down into the slot and takes the slot receiver. You have Trent McDuffie on the outside, and then you have Jalen Watson usually on the other side. And Jalen Watson is going to go up against probably one of Jamar Chase or T. Higgins for a lot of this game. And I don't know that ends well. I don't know that it does. Hard not to bet Kelsey overs. So, yeah, Joe Osborne was on with me on Wednesday, and he was kind of talking about this. Receiving yardage is 78.5. So, really quickly, if I'm pulling up Travis Kelsey's game logs here, when the games matter and they're on the line, these are some pretty big numbers in the postseason the last few years. 17 targets last week. 17 targets. Now, only 98 yards, but AFC Championship last year against Cincinnati. 11 targets, 95 yards. Against Buffalo. Now, that was an OT game. So was Cincy, so you got to account for that. 9 targets, 96 yards. Against Pittsburgh, wildcard round last year, 7 targets, 108 yards. He's pretty heavily targeted in these playoff games. So I don't mind that look either. Very confused that Kelsey, anytime touchdown, actually went down week over week. So 48 the total. What was the KC Jacksonville total? Right in that range too, right? That's a little bit surprising to me as well. So, those are my main thoughts on the game. You can watch it back before game time. For anyone who's tuned in late, this will go up. It's on the YouTube channel. It'll be live. But Eagles are my look this week. Someone earlier asked, and I can't find the comment, does it bother me when I line up with the public side? No. For those who've watched me forever, I've talked about fading the public and why I don't think that's a viable long-term strategy. For those who are new here, I'll just quickly reiterate why. But lots of people just want to bet the same side as the sport. I want to root for what the sports book is cheering for, right? Okay, well, there's a little bit of a difference because when somebody makes a bet with the sports book is getting plus 110 on the bet. Somebody's betting a spread with them at minus 110. They're cheering at plus 110. Now, if you want to go out and you want to bet the same side as the book, you're not getting plus 110. You're getting minus 110. It's a 5% difference. You need to win at a 5% higher rate than the entirety of the sports book. So I never understood that. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but I'm very price sensitive. At the end of the day, if you're betting the NFL and you're handicapping the games, what sense are you going to do all this handicapping, making your own number on the game, and then saying, oh, I'm not going to bet it. I really like it, but I'm not going to bet it because everybody else is betting it. Because, I'm watching the broadcast and, 5 of the 7 broadcasters picked the Bengals to win. I'm not going to touch the Bengals today. What's the point? What is the point? Other thing to note, public bet percentages, right? Pull up a public bet percentage on the Bengals and Chiefs game today. What are you going to get? You're going to get a percentage. You're going to get 70% of the bets are on the Bengals. Okay. At what number? When were the bets on the Bengals? What number do people bet the Bengals at? Are they betting them now? Did they bet them as favorite? Like, you have no context into that. No context. And then on top of that, the whole reverse line movement thing, wait for the line to move. Well, now your whole goal of betting the NFL should be to get out ahead of the line moves. If you're going to wait for it to move to place your bet, you're betting into a market that's already corrected. None of that really makes sense. For those who are in the comments right now, Super Bowl matchup prediction. I'm very curious to see. Just pick the teams that are going to win the games. I'm just interested in what this following likes for the Super Bowl matchup this week. Let me know. I'll give it a second. I am having a tough time. Eagles, KC. Chiefs, Eagles. Chiefs, Eagles. Eagles, Bengals. Chiefs, 49ers. Eagles win it all. San Fran, KC. All right, we got a pretty good mix. And this is kind of what I was getting at, right? Like, it's tough games, man. These are four of the best teams in the NFL. Probably four of the best five. Buffalo is probably better. Although they lost to Cincy at home. So what are you going to say? These are great teams. Enjoy the games this week. Appreciate everyone who tuned in. Make sure you like and subscribe to the content. Again, more likes, more subscriptions. I can do more of this. I could go live every day next year if we get enough people and enough interest. And it helps people find us in the YouTube algorithm. So please like and subscribe to the content if you haven't already. It's free, by the way. The YouTube subscription is free. It's no charge. Just got to click that subscribe button. Simple as that. If you're in Ontario, check out Pinnacle Sportsbook. I've been betting with Pinnacle for as long as I can remember. One of the best sportsbooks out there. A sportsbook of integrity. If you're a high limit bettor, you're not going to get limited at Pinnacle ever. It's a low vig sportsbook. You can very often find the best price there. So if you're in Ontario, check out Pinnacle. You have to be 19 plus. And again, please bet responsibly. Everyone, enjoy the games today. And give Alex Moretto some love on the Hammer HQ tonight, 6:30. Stepping up and in, hosting the live watch along. Again, Clive Bixby, who you guys know from the Forward Progress channel here, is going to be on. Jeff Feinberg, my brother from another mother, is going to be on in Q2 as well. Brad Powers, who you know from the Hit the Books channel, coming on, quarter 3. Hitman, Joey Kanish. It's going to be a very lively crowd tonight. So, if you want a second screen experience, live watch along on the Hammer HQ, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time tonight. This has been the Pizza Buffet on Forward Progress, powered by Pinnacle Sportsbook here on the Hammer Betting Network. Everyone, good luck with your bets today.